So there's been some concerns from parents about, obviously this is a new school year, new transportation company. Some have voiced that their kids dropped off too late or not picked up in a good amount of time. What do you all have to say, Roanoke City Schools?
Well, first of all, I apologize if we've been late, and of course, we've only been in school one day. We're aware of the issues, and we're addressing those issues. We have all the confidence in the world with Durham bus transportation system. They're great to work with. We're partners in this. And like any school year, the first few days, you're going to have transportation issues because people move, they change addresses, we don't get the address changes. It takes a little longer getting students adjusted in the elementary schools, especially new kindergarten, preschool. It takes them a while to get on and off the bus because we want to be safe. We want to make sure they're getting on the right bus. We want to make sure they know how to get off and where they have to go. In the afternoons, we want to make sure that we're releasing our preschoolers and our kindergartners to the proper person. And this all takes a little bit of extra time. And then there's just been some errors on our part, and we own those errors. And we ask that people be a little patient. Give us a couple of days. Usually after the first week or so, everything is where it needs to be to improve communication. I believe we have 5 lines now at the transportation garage. We have a bank of phones here at central office that'll roll over to. We have GPS on all our buses, so we can, when parents get to us, we can tell them exactly where the bus is. But, be honest, we have plenty of buses, and we're just short a few drivers, so we're having to double up sometimes. That's not unusual, but it's something we're working hard to correct.
Could you elaborate on what some of those, I guess some of the errors that you experienced yesterday were communication and
well, the big errors were communications. We had a group of phones at transportation, and we put in new phones. They weren't rolling over properly, so if you were calling, you were getting a message that your call couldn't be taken or the voice box was full. And that's frustrating. Any of us that call someplace, especially if you have a child involved, you want an answer. So automatically they were calling here to the superintendent's office, which has 2 lines, and so we had 3 adults in there, which created a problem because if I'm answering the phone trying to find out something, I'd have to be able to contact Durham. I can't contact Durham if all the lines are tied up. So, but we've worked through that. We now have a way to contact Durham if it gets to us, directly to someone in dispatch, so we can get the question, the information to the parent right away. Your child's on the bus, this is where the bus is at, and this is when you can expect them. So I think those were the major issues.
What were some of the specific complaints that you were hearing from the community? I'm thinking in terms of how long were some of these delays, and were they happening pick up or drop off?
And if you could continue again.
The delays were happening both at pickup and drop off. If you happen to drive around the city yesterday morning, it was kind of made you feel good because there were kids at bus stops with their entire families. And so with new routes and some new drivers, it takes a little bit longer to get around to those places. Just to get out of, we found just getting out of the transportation building, there's a traffic light at the top of the hill that 3 buses can get through on a cycle, so we're looking to address that. On the way home, it takes a while to load students up on the bus. Where there was confusion, the scheduled call for departure at 2:30 from the schools. We had the buses show up at 2:30. Well, if you're going to depart at 2:30, we've got to be there earlier so we can have more time to get the kids on the bus. We've rectified that, so our buses will be there at 2:05 now. It gives a little more time during the first few days to get kids, especially the really young ones, into the routine of what bus they got to get to. It gives time for the drivers to make sure it's the right kid getting on the bus, check student ID numbers, so that'll speed up things. And then you have to remember we have 13,000 students, so half our students depart school at 2:30. Then you get our middle and high school students that are on the second half. So if our elementary runs late, then of course our middle and high schools are running late. And so we're trying to rectify that. I think the latest bus yesterday out of the middle schools was probably an hour and a half late, and we own that. And I think in the mornings yesterday, I know at William Fleming, there was a bus that was an hour late in the morning. Well, today was a little better. We were, 40 minutes late with one bus. So it is getting better. We're working out the kinks, and the key is communication. At 1 o'clock today, we're going to send out a call to all our parents saying, look, we addressed the issues, or a lot of the issues from yesterday. We're anticipating, though, that there will still be some late arrivals home. We asked for their patience. We gave them the Durham number to call, and we let them know if that number have all 5 lines busy, it's going to roll over here to our bank of phones, and we're going to have a staff in here to answer it. So I think the major issue, if we get the communication down, our parents are wonderful. They're pretty good, but they want to know where their kid is and what time to expect them home, and that's only fair and reasonable.
What's the difference between the number of bus drivers you currently have and the number of bus drivers you need?
I'm going to let Mr. Ziegler answer that because I don't want to give you misinformation. But the way I understand it, we're at about 90% of what we need, and he can address the operations of the system.
I know first day back to school is always, kind of a challenge getting the bus routes. Was what happened yesterday atypical compared to years past as far as challenges go?
I don't think it was atypical, but I think anytime you have a new system coming in or a new provider, you might have a little higher expectations, which are probably a little unrealistic for our first day of school. Now, if we're having this problem, let's say in a week, then I'd have some real concerns if we don't see improvement. And I am confident that we will see improvement.
How did the district select this provider?
We did an RFP, request for proposals. We had probably a half dozen response. We review all the proposals. We score each proposal. We bring our top 3 scores in for rounds of interviews, and we select our top candidate, and then you negotiate with the top candidate.
And you're saving money by this contract compared to the previous contract you had?
Yes, there should be a slight savings, but the awarding of the contract isn't based strictly on, it's not the lowest bidder automatically gets the contract. There's a number of things you evaluate.
Some parents are saying that their students didn't arrive to school until 9:30, 9:45, long after school was supposed to start. What are you doing to catch kids up on what they missed in those first few hours of the day?
Well, the principals are all aware of the schedules, and we're aware of the problems we were having yesterday. The ones that were 9:30ish were high school students. We actually held them in homerooms a little later. We made sure our cafeterias stayed open so that no one missed breakfast. So each principal at each school does it a little differently, but we're not penalizing the kids for being late because of a bus.
Are you doing any sort of audit, tracking GPS of buses to see what exactly might have gone wrong?
We are monitoring by GPS. The bus company does that. We get a report. I have one sitting on my desk from every school, the bus number, what time it arrived. So we're looking at reasons and why, and those are some of the issues we're working to correct.
Let's do one more question with Dr. Lyons, and then we'll go over to Mr. Ziegler, okay?
I was going to say, this may be a question for Dr. Ziegler, or Mr. Ziegler, but do you know what percentage of drivers from Mountain Valley Transportation were hired by Durham as part of the transition?
I don't know that. I think any that wanted to continue employment that met the company's qualifications were all offered the position.